People assume there's some hack or some trick or one funnel or one framework or one something that could have tilted the scales to give them an outsized success. The 80-20 is go and don't stop. And I think most people don't want to hear that. Don't fall in love with your product. That's the biggest trap of them all. You should be slightly embarrassed by it when you ship. And I get to Whole Foods and it's just hot. I'm sweaty. I take my food to the counter and go to pay, and the only card I have is my business card, and I just wasn't paying attention, so I swiped it and it declined. And I've got an open drink and food that you can't put back. Like, the more you think you have it figured out under 10 million, the more you're wrong. Because if you think you know what you're doing and you have it all figured out, you don't.
Today's guest is Joe Stolte, a 5-time tech founder with 3 successful exits, including Lottery.com, which went public at $526 million, and GrowFlow, which sold for $62.5 million. Today, Joe is the CEO of Daily.ai, helping thought leaders like Peter Diamandis, Joe Polish, and Chris Voss build AI-powered newsletters with open rates north of 50%, all in under 5 minutes a week. Joe, thank you for your time, and welcome to the 5th quarter.
Thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.
Joe, when people see the $526 million IPO headline or your track record, what do they assume was the secret that actually wasn't?
It's a really good question. People assume that it happened easily, or people assume that I had some secret to the whole thing, that if they just had that secret, then they could then grow their business, or they might be able to sell a business one day. Or if they think there's some hack or some trick or one funnel or one framework or one sales letter or one something that could have tilted the scales to give them an outsized success. And I think what most people don't realize about business is business success is an emergent property of doing many things right at the same time. It's a bunch of systems working together coherently. And when you wire them all up together, then you get success, right? Think about your body. You have cells create tissues create organs create the body, and you have a brain, and the emergent is like your consciousness. That's kind of how success is with the business. They don't realize it's not one thing, it's many things. And so beyond the headlines of the exits and the numbers, there's many failures, there's many experiments that definitely didn't work. There's lots and lots of setbacks and having to reframe your life every day just to keep going. And then you get that headline and it's like, oh man, what was the secret? What was the hack? What was the thing? What's the 80-20? The 80-20 is go and don't stop. And I think most people don't want to hear that. It doesn't make for a very good viral hook.
You know, one thing I always like about you when I hear you speak is how you're able to break down concepts in a very simple and concise way. And I'm glad that we've started off with how you did, because I think a question that comes up a lot of the time is like, how fast versus how deep do you go? And like, what is the right collaboration between those two? You know, you'll have the people that are like, hey, look, we need to make sure it's as perfect as possible. And then you have people that say imperfect action is the only way to go. And the truth is kind of somewhere in the middle, because if you go too quickly, you end up building things that break down on the foundation, and then you spend up more time cleaning things up. But if you take analysis paralysis, you actually don't ever build up anything, and the idea is worthless. So for you, how were you able to manage speed versus the depth of what you were building?
I think there's a spectrum that most people don't see, which is on one side of the spectrum, you have zero obsession for what you're doing. You're chasing money, or you're using business as a mechanism to get something other than the path that you're on in business. And then the other side is obsession, where you're just completely in love with the thing that you're working on. And you wake up every day and you just throw yourself into it because you can't not do that. You wake up in the middle of the night with ideas, you are excited, you're creating a vision and recruiting people to build it with you. And so I think depending on where you're at in that spectrum really matters, because if you are not having your business be your primary obsession, then it really matters how you distribute your time, right? Because if I don't really love it, then I need to be very hyper vigilant about my time. And in that case, finding the right balance, like the minimum viable dose that I need to put into any given effort in order to get the output that I want is really important, because I want to get on to do other things with my life. And so for some startups, I've been on this side of the spectrum where I just didn't love it. There's no purpose in it. I was excited about the problem, but I wasn't completely obsessed about it. And so in that case, I was very vigilant about time and experimentation and what's the least that I could build and validate before I scale. I think, and on the other side of it, I've had businesses where I'm just ridiculously obsessed. Like I overdo everything because it's a giant art project and the whole thing is just so much fun to do that I'm completely detached from anything that's in terms of time leverage or metrics or efficiency. I think for most people, if you're at under, let's say, $3 million a year in revenue, you need to be doing more things and you need to be trying more things. So that would be my general advice. And if you're at over 3 million, especially as you get over 10, 15, or 25 million in revenue a year, you're on the other side of the parabola. So if you think about a mathematical parabola, right, you cut it in half. To the left of that, let's say that's below, I don't know, 10 million. You should be doing a lot of things faster and experimenting. How fast can you implement? How fast can you iterate? How fast can you put things into the market? And I think to the right of that, you need to start asking yourself, what are the implications of this? What are the second and third and fourth order implications of that? Because now you have a working system. And when you screw with working systems, there's not obvious consequences that come out of that. So you need to spend more time being perfect or thinking or planning or strategizing or considering the consequences of your actions. But if you're below 10 million in revenue a year and that's just a benchmark, 10 or 15, you should just be trying a lot of things because there's a lot of things you need to get right. You have to get right your lead generation and make sure that it's consistent and predictable. You have to get conversion locked up. And it's not just that you can get people to pay you, it's like that you get the right people that are excited about the thing that you're selling and want to refer and buy again. So that's just solving the demand side of business. And in order to really get the final mile of demand, you have to be great at supply, meaning what you sell actually has to deliver on the promises in an extraordinary way, like a 10 out of a 10. And when you start, you're not a 10 out of a 10. You don't even know what a 10 out of a 10 is because it's not your eye, it's the eye of the market, right? And there's just so many times in business that I figured out that the people I wanted to serve in the market I thought was the best one was like on the dartboard, but not on the bullseye. And there's no way I would have found the bullseye unless I just went in and experimented and tried things and worked with people. And then there's like it's like putting a puzzle together. I get the outline going, but I kind of have an idea of where I'm at, but I got to put the pieces in place to make it happen. So I think it matters, A, how obsessed are you? Because if you're more obsessed, you're just going to be willing to try more stuff and time's less important. And then B, where are you at from a stage perspective? And if you're sub 10 million, I think speed of implementation is probably the most important value you could have in your mindset or your business, your toolkit, or in your culture in order to just try more things. Because if you think you know what you're doing and you have it all figured out, you don't. Like the more you think you have it figured out under 10 million, the more you're wrong, the less likely you are to be accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. A business is an iterative process, right? And I think they all feed into one another. So when you start doing more marketing, you start getting more leads and you start speaking to more people, you get an idea of who it is that you want and who you don't want and what that product needs to look like, right? So output essentially is what you're saying when you're under that $10 million mark. Just do more so you can know more about what your business really is.
100%, right? Like you may not know what traction channel makes the most sense. Like for years, I always thought that like referrals and outbound and good sales teams, that's all I needed and a good product. And for the most part, I was right. And it wasn't until lately I was like, wow, organic social media is insanely, it's mega high leverage. It's one of the highest leverage things I've ever experienced in marketing. That just wasn't on my bingo card when I started this journey as an entrepreneur 15 years ago, right? So you
Yeah,
just
I've seen
don't
how
know
quickly
what,
that
yeah,
social page has blown up, and we'll be giving it to everyone at the end to come and follow you and see some of your content. But I can see the output that you're putting in there as well, just in that short time and how quickly it's grown.
yeah. And I love social media because there's a really tight feedback loop. I think that people that have made it past 60 to 80K a month in revenue don't appreciate how important the speed of a feedback loop is, right? Like I try something, I want to know if it worked or not. I want to measure the data and calibrate my actions. I think there's this proclivity once you get close to about 1 million a year in revenue to stop trying hard. But actually, that's like the time where I think you need to try the hardest. And you need to be focused on getting and trying the hardest just means, I think, shortening feedback loops to the point where you try something and experiment and see if it worked or not and then adjust. And the thing I love about social media is the feedback loop is immediate. It's like every 24 to 72 hours, you get immediate feedback. Did the hook land? Did it keep the attention of the people watching it? Were the people watching it the people that I wanted to attract? Did they take the action that I wanted them to take? So it's like getting to run 3 to 6 hyper focused experiments every day and getting immediate feedback. And then if you crack it, then you scale it with paid advertising or do a bunch of different things with it. So that's why I like social media is it creates this habitual
Mm.
feedback loop. It's like building a feedback loop muscle. And I just don't think enough people that are in that, well, I don't know, 1 to 3 million revenue range have a deep enough appreciation for how much experimenting you should be doing and how tight those feedback loops should be so you can learn faster. Because at that stage, it's as important to learn as it is to earn, in my opinion, especially if you want to build something big.
What is an early belief about startup success that you've just thrown out the window? Let's say, when you first came in to build businesses, you're like, all right, these are the strong beliefs that I hold. Um, what are the ones that you've thrown out that you think a lot of people hold on to?
Don't fall in love with your product. That's the biggest trap of them all. Building a product and thinking that all of the appreciation and effort and ideation that went into making it matters. It doesn't. And literally none of that matters. All that matters is that you build a product that gets the outcome for the market you're going after. Right? We're in the business of solving people's problems for a profit, right? So if our product or service doesn't solve the problem in a way that the customer wants to engage, or the client or the patient or whatever your market is doesn't want to engage, then you're wasting your time. And I think it's really easy to fall in love with your product. And when I first got started, I left a very, I don't say very high pay. I was like making $250,000 a year 15 years ago at Microsoft and was having a great time. I left that to do venture backed startup. And my first startup, we were making like a crowdfunding platform to help the biggest musicians in the world raise money for their favorite charities. And we fell in love with our product. It worked. It just, we over indexed on what we thought was cool and not what the multifaceted set of stakeholders needed to believe in to make sure that that product was going to land and scale and expand. And I learned quickly from that failure that never, ever, ever fall in love with your product. You should be slightly embarrassed by it when you ship versus being proud of it. If you waited too long to be proud of it and you're in love with it, you're not
Yeah.
getting enough feedback fast enough.
So you fell out of, well, you didn't fall, yeah, well, you fell out of love with the product after you realized, okay, this, it didn't work the way that you wanted it to work. But how do people realize that pre-failure, or is failure the cost of learning that lesson?
I think failure is the cost of learning that lesson. I think there's leading indicators though. First of all, I think anybody that's like a coach or a consultant or a service-based business should go read The Lean Startup, the book. It's talking about Silicon Valley products, but I think those principles are just as applicable in a service-based business. Like, what's the least building I can do of my service to make sure that it gets the outcome for my client or my customer? That's it. That's milestone one. And if I've gone past that, I've probably overbuilt and I'm in dangerous territory of falling in love with my product. In fact, if you're not a little bit embarrassed by the way you get things done, meaning it's not scalable and it's duct tape and chicken wire behind the scenes, it's Zapier and Filipinos offshore or whatever to get it done, even though the packaging looks a lot better, I think that's a good place to be in. It's not a good place to stay in because I can take the money that I make from delivering the outcome and then go make my product better, make it scale better, make it more automated, make it less friction for the end customer. And if you're trying to optimize and make it perfect from the inception without running people through it, I think that's where you're going to fall in love with your product, and that's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, it's similar to I don't know if you've watched the BlackBerry movie. Have you seen the BlackBerry
I
movie?
haven't.
And
Mm-mm.
and one of the things he's like, oh, how long will it take for a prototype? And the guy's like, it's going to take a year. And he's like, look, I just need something to wave around at a meeting tomorrow. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just give me something that looks like what the product might look like. And you can always tell people, hey, it's going to be ready there. I just want to make sure that you're interested in it, and then build towards that, knowing that you have people that will be customers. Um, so one of the things when you and I speak is it's clear that you've built like a lot of pattern recognition, and you see that in very successful entrepreneurs. It doesn't really matter what they're venturing into. There is this ability to really pattern recognize. Um, and I think a lot of the time people think that comes with ingenuity, and it comes with intellect, and some people are just naturally wired that way. But my feeling has always been it comes because you've collected a lot of scars. You know,
Mm,
and a lot of heartache and a lot of loss and a lot of suffering. And you might have a little bit of that naturally, but going through the bad times is what makes you a little bit more on the ball and more alert about the next thing that you get into, because you're just like, hey, I never want to experience those things that I've experienced again. And I've seen this movie before. So,
100%.
with all the success that you've had, how busy you are, the companies that you've built, is there a particular chapter of your journey which almost broke you, either mentally or financially or both?
Definitely. This is it's still even hard to go back to this place, like I've alchemized the lesson in many ways, but it was such a devastating disappointment. Our first startup got left at the altar on our Series A, meaning we had agreed to terms with a billionaire VC, and the deal was hand shook, pop champagne, and then he never signed it. And then he ended up buying one of our largest competitors instead of funding our deal,
Well,
knowing that we were running out of cash. And so we had to sort of sell the company for spare parts. And there was this place where I bankrupted my company. Like I just like closed everything out, closed the bank account, signed the documents. And it was in the summer, and I was living in Venice Beach, California. And if you can remember back to this social media viral trend called the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, it was that summer.
okay.
And there was like a drought in California because it was so hot. And I walked from my place right off Abbot Kinney to the Whole Foods in Venice Beach, and it was a hot day. And so I just was walking, processing my thinking, like, wow, what am I going to do next? And this wasn't on my bingo card, and this is very disappointing. And I get to Whole Foods, and it's just hot. I'm sweaty. It's a really hot day. I go in and I get my hot bar food, and I go back and grab like a really cold drink. I even grabbed a drink like 3 drinks behind it because it's like a little further in the fridge and a little colder.
Yeah.
I open it immediately, drink it, take my food to the counter and go to pay. And the only card I have is my business card. And I just wasn't paying attention. So I swiped it and it declined. And I've got an open drink and food that you can't put back. So I make this awkward lie, this excuse that, oh, I'm going to go to my car and get another card. And I just walked home, and it was the longest walk home of my life. It was just embarrassing. I was a 30-year-old man, freshly married. I was going to be living off my wife with basically no money. I had less than no money. I was over $36,000 in debt because all the company credit cards were in my name. And so I go back to our place in Abbot Kinney, and I just kind of sit there. And I remembered some advice that a mentor gave me. He's like, don't celebrate your successes for longer than a day. Just get back in the game, and don't sulk on your losses longer than a day. Suffering is optional. Just get back in and keep your feet moving. And I didn't know at the time how important that advice was going to be, but I remembered that, and I was like, all right, I'm going to have my feelings today and be stuck in my sadness, but tomorrow I'm going to get up and make it happen. Next morning, my roommate, who became my longtime business partner in multiple businesses and multiple exits, was like, hey, come out to eat with me. I'll buy you lunch. So he took me to this place, this burger place in Santa Monica. At the time, I was pescatarian. I ordered a tuna burger, and we just started brainstorming ideas. And in like a few hours, we had an idea for a social media app, like a scraping tool. And within like a week and a half or 2 weeks, we had a customer list, and we were cold reaching out to people to manage their social media accounts with this new tool that we built. And that business was super successful. I mean, it made cash, it did well, and it just, I wouldn't have been able to get back up on my feet and just keep moving if I didn't alchemize that lesson and say, nope, I'm not going to be sad longer than a day. I am going to take my time and feel my feelings, but I'm going to get back on the horse. And then that ended up being the first company that we sold. But that was probably the lowest point in my business career. I was very successful as a management consultant and very successful in corporate America. I didn't know what it was like to lose in business yet. It was not an experience that I had. And I failed spectacularly. I mean, it was bad.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It sounds like especially when your first experience in entrepreneurship is having a company of that size at the table, ready to invest in what you had built immediately at your first go in entrepreneurship, and then obviously to come back from that. I can imagine how difficult it was. So I appreciate you sharing. Was it easy for you to like separate your identity from that outcome at the time? It sounds like you got that friend that came through for you and was like, "Hey, let's have some lunch." Literally the next day, probably pulled you out of something, as maybe even a season that would have lasted a lot longer, and the more time that had gone on without you being able to really have an opportunity to talk out ideas with somebody else, it probably would have gone on a little bit longer. So I think you were very lucky to have had that friend call you that day and be like, "Let's go out," because he's kind of picked you up straight away and got you back into brainstorming mode as opposed to feeling sorry for yourself or thinking about the things that had just happened. But was it because when you go through an experience like that, the next time you build something and the next time you go to sell something, I'm sure those feelings are there as well. So how long did it take to separate your identity from what had happened in that first go? Because it's something that I struggled with once or twice where it happened to me. So I'd be interested to hear how you've dealt with that.
Yeah, I think a big mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make is we compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. We
Mm.
compare our behind the scenes mess, problems, issues to everyone else's Instagram feed or their YouTube videos. And I think that's a dangerous trap because that inside of that place of comparison, you create this massive gap between who you are and who you think someone else is. And it's just this massive thief of your joy and your happiness and your energy. And so I was lucky, man. Like I was surrounded by other very successful entrepreneurs and they were all doing amazing things. Like many of them were building what went on to become unicorn startups, and it wasn't their first business. So when I first had that experience, I thought, man, I am just, does the world really need another entrepreneur? Am I cut out for this? Should I go back and get a job? Like, what am I doing with my life? And I also had some friends that pulled me aside and it was like, this is the game. Like you're gonna lose. We've all lost. Everybody's been where you're at. It's not if, it's when. And if you're not, then you're not swinging far enough or fast enough. And so, welcome to the game, right? Like everybody gets this experience. So congratulations. It's not that you're not us, it's you're more us. You're just in the trough right now. You're in this low place. But keep going because look, every single one of us that's, at the time was building a unicorn startup or became a unicorn startup or was doing quite well, they all had a massive loss or they've all had like a major face plant. And so that was very affirmatory to me where I was like, okay, I got this. So that was like a little patch of the patchwork quilt of my identity as an entrepreneur that allowed me to say, this is supposed to be happening to me and this is a good thing. And what can I learn from this? There's
Mm.
a saying, if you lose, don't lose the lesson. And someone said that to me. I was like at the beach at a barbecue later that summer. And I thought, wow, what a great lesson. What a great idea. So I just went back and I would journal all the things, all the mistakes I thought I made, and all that energy in me that wanted to be perfect and wanted to not fail and wanted to look like a success to everybody went and said, okay, I failed because I failed at fundraising. I was not good at fundraising. I failed because I fell in love with my product. I failed because I didn't hold my business partners and my team to a high enough standard of output. And when I heard in my head that it wasn't at the standard, I didn't speak up. So those are my three big failures from that first startup. So what did I do? I went and studied everything that I could about fundraising. The people that had done it the best, all the best books, all the people I know that crushed it, people that had a hard time and still pulled it off. I went and studied leadership. How do we hold a high standard with people that are even close to us? And how do we collide with them in a way that doesn't ruin the relationship but strengthens it? And then on and on and on. And then how do I figure out this product stuff? So I went and talked to a bunch of great product managers. So I just went to school, on what are the on my failure points. And I was like, I am not going to fail on those three things. Like I'm happy to fail by picking the wrong market or doing something that I like another lesson I haven't quite learned, but I am not going to fail on those three things. And so the next company, venture back company that I had a chance to do that in was lottery.com, which is the company that went public. And we raised over $100 million, and it's still one of the best fundraising decks I've ever been a part of. Best fundraising teams, best fundraising cultures. We had like short codes and we spoke a certain language. I mean, when I say I went in on fundraising, I went in and we figured it out and we raised quite a bit of money. Not that that's success, but that was just, for me, that was important. Same thing with product. Like I'm not an amazing product manager, but I learned what it takes to get a great product manager to do that job and hold them to a standard so they can get the job done for me. Who, not how, right? And so those are my three lessons that I took from that failure. And in retrospect, I can't imagine being successful without having had that failure and without having gone in and done the work on those three things. Because if I sit back and look at every business that we've ever had an exit or had some success in, it always comes down to those three things. Just applying those lessons and not failing at them again.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I think that's a lot of wise advice, and I think you're right in terms of it's a badge of honor. You know that you're on the journey, and it's a really good opportunity to learn and make sure you never go through those same mistakes again and come out stronger. Um, let's kind of climb out of those moments a little bit and rewind the tape and look at one play that changed everything. Okay, so across lottery.com, across GrowFlow, across Daily.ai, you've made decisions that have multiplied the value of those companies really quickly. Um, so let's pull apart one of them, and whichever one you think is going to be most valuable for people listening, or whichever one really, changed things for you. What was one strategic decision a product pivot, a hire, or a deal that like fundamentally changed your trajectory, would you say?
When I left corporate America and management consulting, the role inside of startups that I was playing was like something at the intersection of like strategy and COO. So not the CEO and not the revenue person. I think a huge shift for me was I decided after like in the middle of lottery.com and towards the end that I'm going to change my whole identity and all I'm going to do is focus on revenue for the next few years. I'm going to master the demand side of business. Peter Drucker famously said there's really only two things that matter in a business. One is marketing, and two is innovation. And so I felt like I'd gone around the block on innovation, how to create products and services that are innovative that people want, but I don't feel like I had enough at bats on the revenue, the demand side. So I just went hard in learning everything I could about revenue generation. And to me, learning is not intellectualizing ideas and reading books. I'd been reading books on direct response marketing and branding for like 10 years. Learning is behavior change. I needed a petri dish where I could apply what I knew in my mind. And so when my friend, same guy that took me out to lunch, became the CEO of this company called GrowFlow, he's like, hey, I'm going to recruit an executive team and I'm going to pull in some people, our old crew from Lottery. I want you to come be co-CEO with me. And I was like, I don't believe in co-CEO. You be CEO. And if you want some coaching from me and support on that, I'm happy to do it. I want to be chief revenue officer. I want to be responsible for all the leads and all the sales. And so we did. And that was my petri dish. And so the one play that really shifted for me is GrowFlow got funded. We raised $8 million. The check hit the bank on like March 19th of 2020. And for those of you that don't remember, that was about 72 hours before the whole world shut down, at least the whole United States shut down. And you can't see it in the background, but there's a framed picture of a screenshot of the bank statement. You can see that $8 million hit the bank and that the account balance was less than $8 million. It means the 8 million hit right as the payroll went out, like within hours. And so if that didn't happen, we would never be talking about GrowFlow. That thing would have just gone off a cliff, right? And so the pivot was that everything closed. And our strategy with GrowFlow was a B2B SaaS company. We were the number one inventory management software in the legal cannabis industry, which, by the way, is an industry I knew nothing about. I just was like, I'm going to be CRO of an industry I know nothing about, and I'm just going to go figure it out. So the pivot was we were going to go set up sales offices in the states in the US here where it was legally permissible to sell cannabis and do local sales like door knocking and just that's how we were going to go to market or scale. But we couldn't do that during COVID. So the pivot for me was like, okay, we can't run ads because it's even though we don't touch the plant, those ads would not be approved by ad platforms. Social media algorithms also really don't love promoting anything to do with cannabis. So I was like, wow, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. I'm going to do hardcore direct mail, direct response. And so what we did is the pivot is like, cool, we can't be online. We can't run ads. I can't door knock. I'm going to send lumpy mail to people. I'm going to send gag gifts. We sent sushi socks to people with little fun little notes that was like, hey, we just want to help you grow your business. We don't want to sell you anything. Just get on a phone and we're going to talk about scaling your cannabis business. And if you want, we'll buy you real sushi over Uber Eats. All you got to do is call us and arrange the call and tell us what kind of sushi you want. And then we'd have like a campaign where it just the letters would get funnier and the gifts would get weirder. And we were just sending out thousands and thousands and thousands of these lumpy pieces of mail. So the shift for me was like, all right, if I can't go digital, I'm literally just going to apply all the direct response marketing things that I've been reading about for over a decade and just do them. And we did, and it worked super well. I mean, we it was creative. People would be like, I don't even want to talk to you, but your letters are so funny that I had to call you back and tell you that we just read them in the office and laugh because it's so depressing right now. And so I
Yeah.
was like, cool. What are you guys using for, your inventory management software? So, and then we built a great sales team, 10 or 12 people that had an amazing culture. We did sales training every morning. And then they went in and did their thing based on the leads we were getting from Lumpy Mail. And we took the business from 900K to 8 million, over 8 million in annual recurring revenue in 2.5 years during the
Wow.
pandemic, which is crazy. So that was the thing that shifted for me is like, let's just use what we have. Everything's a resource if you learn how to use it. So the pandemic became this not a tragedy, but a resource that we could flip in order to get people's attention. It became this amazing moment to capitalize on for us.
Yeah, I love that. And you probably had way more fun going through that strategy than you would have done if you were just running paid and, more cold traffic was coming in and I can only imagine what the culture was like at that company especially during a time of COVID when people wanted to be together and, be around each other and try and have fun at a time when no one really was having fun. Um, a lot of the time these decisions don't happen in a vacuum, so let's talk about like the operating system behind them. So, you've built 5 companies. For some people, that's like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine doing that. The one that I have right now is a nightmare enough, and I'm already working 16 hours a day, and I barely get to see my wife or my kids or have time for a love life or not be fat. What for you, what were the rituals, the daily or the weekly rituals that you always kept sharp consistently? So, you know, I won't define you as a luxury player now, but you're probably in a more luxury place than you were when you first started, right? But is there something in particular when you first started that you were able to keep going until now or kept you sane or sharp? And then how have you built upon that to date?
So the main factors in terms of habits that helped me build success, or at least enabled it, I'll give you the counterintuitive, not obvious one first. I made sure my environment was absolutely inspiring. I made sure my environment was so inspiring that it was hard to be sad or depressed or in a low energetic state. So I left Seattle and I moved to Venice Beach, 4 blocks from Venice Beach, 3 blocks from Gold's Gym, off Abbot Kinney, which was at the time GQ called it the sexiest street in America. It was like the most important cultural point in West LA. We had celebrities, and I'm talking about Justin Bieber played in my living room, because we made our place cool. Everyone wanted to be there. Justin Bieber, Hosier, I could name dozens of musicians that just came over to our house. My wife was in the kitchen one day cooking breakfast, and Selena Gomez walked in and was like, "Oh, hey, do you need help cooking?" My wife's like, "Oh, hi, no, but are you hungry?" Like, so it was so foreign to me. So, but we built this amazing environment by the beach, high energy, lots of startups around, Google down the street. We made it a cool place where cool people wanted to hang out. And you may not live by a beach and you may not be able to move, but what can you do with your environment so that when you walk in, it's like a sanctuary of inspiration? Whatever that is for you, inspiring quotes on the wall, open space, a place to meditate, good lighting, great books. Just surround yourself in an environment that produces your best energetic state so that you create the conditions that you can show up in your best. That was the first thing that I really nailed without really knowing that that's what I was doing. At the time, the reason I fell into that is because when I left Seattle, my father had just died from cancer. And I was like, man, I just want to be in a happy, sunny, great place. And I ended up learning that that was really important to me personally. All right. After that, as the years went on, I'm 43 years old now. The only metric that matters to me, like if I nail this metric, it's like the one domino that I push over that makes all the other ones fall over. In order for this metric to be in good shape, everything else has to be locked in. And that's sleep. That's quality sleep, right? So I don't care if you have like a Whoop band or an Aura ring, just having great HRV, right? So you've got a good balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system when you're sleeping. So you're actually rejuvenating. That is the most important part. And I'll just call that recovery, right? Recover well. Especially the older you get, you got to recover well. In order to sleep really well, me personally, I have to eat well, which means I have to really mind my inputs. So I meal prep. I just take that off the menu of time. My meals are prepared. I'm going to get off this call. I'm going to go down. There's food already made in the right portions with the right everything. I go in and eat it and off we go. That may sound bougie. It's not. It's easy and it's actually cheaper than eating out. And I was doing that in Venice because we didn't have a lot of money. I was like literally top ramen poor, but loving my life as a startup guy. Next one beyond that is physical fitness, which just sounds so basic, but like I got inspired to get good ideas by going to the gym. So every day for like almost 700 days straight, I would go to Gold's Gym and just train a different part of my body. And when I started doing back squats with really heavy weight, I started to get these flashes of brilliance, like just major ideas, because it would just calm my brain. All I could do is put everything I had into pushing that weight back up. And then bam, these ideas would pop in. So I started to tell myself, man, every time I heard that voice that was like, hey man, you should sleep in, or you don't need to go to the gym today, I would say, no, I have to go there because my best ideas are in the gym. And I love good ideas. And my whole life is like good ideas, right? So those things, if you lock those in, your sleep, your nutrition, and you lock in your environment, you're in such a good spot to win. I think beyond that, I think you need sunlight. I think you need sex. I think you need socialization. Those are other non-intuitive things. I think socialization, especially for men, is super important. You know, the older you get, the less friends you have. Like I see people, I'm around people all the time, but I don't get to go hang out with people and bro down and go deep as much as I want. So to me, creating systems that allow you to socialize are really important as you get older. And creating systems that you don't over socialize when you're younger are really important. Like don't drink 4 nights a week and party with your homies. 1 or 2 nights, if that's your thing, go for it. But don't over index. So the right amount of socialization. I think it's really important to have sex. I think if you're like a man and you're an entrepreneur and you're gunning and you're like in your head all day and you're really grinding and going and getting after it, I just think sex is a part of balancing out your life. And the last one is just sunlight. I think sunlight helps you sleep. For me personally, I grew up in a place that rained 300 days a year in the Pacific Northwest. I know you can empathize. So sunlight is just a game changer for me. It puts me in a different mood. It makes me happier. I can't stand being in a place that's not sunny all the time. I just need that to function. So I think if you did those things, you're in a really good spot. In fact, I was just talking to our friend Evan Pagan last night. I was coming home late and he called me. We had like an hour-long conversation, and we were talking about the fractal nature of the 80-20 principle. What a nerdy thing to talk about. But 80-20 is fractal. It's not just 80-20, it's 95-5 and 150. And if you keep taking that to its logical conclusion, I think it's like 1 millionth of the right inputs will drive 10% of the outputs, something insane like that. And we were talking about if you just took 7 or 8 areas of your life and you put yourself in the top 10% of all men in those categories, like if you were in the top 10% of income, let's say you make more than 2 million a year, and you put yourself in the top 10% of physique and body and health, you're not in the top 10%, you're in the top 1%, just the way that fractals work. And if you add another thing, let's say you're top 10% in the health of your relationship, you're top 10% in the health of your sleep, all of a sudden you start to get in very rare air as in terms of success. And it really doesn't take a lot to do that. It's literally taking one area of your life, finding a model for the outcome you want, and then building the habits to get yourself there. So I know it's a little bit of a long-winded answer, but these things compound in such powerful ways. You only need to get a few of them locked in. And as cliche as some of them are, man, it matters. And if you're in your 20s or 30s, lock the habits in now so that they're second nature the older you get. And you can go work on other things in your life. And then you just get the gains and they compound over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And is there like a particular metric which you are like which you look at as a North Star that tells you, Joe, right now you're operating at a high leverage in a high leverage place? You know, is there something that's always consistent that you could, it sounds like there's a couple of things that you're doing all the time to make sure that you're optimized and you're getting the good ideas and you're keeping healthy, you're rested well. But if someone was like, Joe, what's a metric that you know tells you that you're operating? Is it a revenue goal? Is it the numbers? What is it?
To me, physiology drives energy and energy drives output in the business. So if my HRV is above 60 and my body fat is below 13% without losing muscle mass, it's inevitable that I'm going to be making more money. I've tracked this obsessively. So if those two metrics get out of whack, I'm either too stressed and not doing the things to get good sleep, and or I am eating poorly and not training the right way or not training hard enough. And then all of a sudden, faithful with little, faithful with much, how you do anything is how you do everything. Lots of things will start to slip, and that will immediately show up in the standards I hold in the business, the performance of my team, and the things that I'm accountable for. So for me personally, at my age and where I'm at, if I lock in my sleep and I lock in my body fat percentage without losing muscle, I will have an abundance of energy that can't not go to my wife and can't not go to my kids and can't not go to my team and my business.
Well, okay. So it all starts with health for you.
How can you give energy you don't have?
Hmm.
You're going to burn up the end of your life. The way that most people do it is they'll go drink a bunch of caffeine or they'll take
Yeah.
Adderall or modafinil, and you're just borrowing from the end of your life. You're manufacturing energy the wrong way. So how can I give energy that I don't have? My whole life is I sell air. I talk and I type. I sell my team on why they need to do things a certain way or why they need to hold a certain standard. I sell the marketplace a vision to come buy a thing that didn't exist before. Or like, so if I don't have the right energy, not just the energy to do it, but be in the right energetic state, call it the right vibrational state, then I can't win. It's just impossible. It's not impossible, but the amount of effort and energy is like something like 10 or 100x more. It's the difference between pushing the boulder uphill and downhill. But if I wake up and I've got Tony Robbins level excitement and passion and energy, it's almost like hard to lose.
Yeah. And you are very much that way. Every time I've seen you, you've always been like a very one track, very high energy, very enthusiastic, very passionate, very concise. And so I guess I've witnessed the benefits of what it is that you do. If an entrepreneur was to follow you for a week, Joe, a seasoned entrepreneur, a beginner entrepreneur, and they shadowed your calendar for a week, what pattern do you think would surprise an experienced entrepreneur and a newbie entrepreneur?
I think for the newbie entrepreneur, they would be surprised by how little I focus on business. Have you ever seen the video of Stephen Covey talking about big rocks?
No.
It's worth watching. So if you're listening or watching this, go look up Stephen Covey, a famous motivational speaker who's now passed away, one of the early gurus of business and training. He talked about big rocks and he has two big buckets. And in one bucket, he fills it full of sand and pebbles and a bunch of nonsense. And then he tries to put big rocks in it and they won't fit. But when he puts the big rocks in the bucket and then the sand and then the pebbles, everything fits. And so I think in life, you have to realize that business is just one of the rocks in the bucket. And so I want to put the big rocks in first. And the big rocks in first are health and family. So if you look at my calendar as a newbie, you'd be shocked to see how little I'm actually in there focusing on the business. I take care of the first things first, which is me. And the second thing is I take care of my family and my wife and make sure their needs are met. And then I layer in the business. So I think that would surprise them. I think what would surprise the experienced entrepreneurs is how little I care about time leverage after a certain point. What I like to do is create systems in my business where how fast can I get to where all I'm doing is my zone of genius, and then I don't care about time anymore. So for example, we just started Prime, which is our new AI training company. It's half mastermind, half training and transformation for larger businesses. And the first, I don't know, $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000, I just used that to pay for a team. And I hired a guy to run the business for me. I needed to get a very experienced, talented person. So rather than spending that money on myself, I just went and got a team so they could do all the things that aren't in my zone of genius, which for me is learning, creating, connecting, coaching, and converting. So if I'm doing those 5 things, they give me energy. If I'm not doing those 5 things, I'm very good at a bunch of different things, but they'll take my energy. And so when I'm in those 5 things, I almost don't care about time. I'm just give me a block of open space and let me cook. It may be 15 minutes, it may be 3 hours. Sometimes I can go the whole day on a topic. On one framework, I could teach for 3 days. Just I love it. So I think an experienced entrepreneur would be surprised to see, like, I don't really like to nitpick. I'm not that obsessive about my time. I'm obsessive about the big picture systems that allow me to stay in my zone of genius. And then I don't really care about time after my body and my family needs are met. I'll do whatever. I'll talk on podcasts for hours. I'll study books for hours. I'll over index on things because I love it. And I don't really care about time allocation. I'm just obsessed. So I think that's probably the big difference. I see a lot of experienced entrepreneurs that are obsessive about time. And I have this belief now in my life that I didn't have before, which is the more you try to hold on to your life, the less alive you are. The more you try to mitigate and optimize and beyond a certain point, the more it's just an expression of fear to try to control your life beyond what can be controlled. So for me, I want to create systems in my life that take care of all the things I don't want to do. And then I just want to be an artist in the things that I do want to do and spend as much time as I possibly can in them according to my priority of big rocks.
Amazing. Joe, what does legacy mean to you?
Great question. I think 20-year-old Joe would have said legacy meant helping a lot of people, having a ripple effect impact so that my life's work goes on to help a lot of people after I'm gone. I think my answer today is that legacy means that I have done the least harm to my children to set them up for success in the future. it's not even about optimizing. It's just how can I use systems to remove the things that I think are the most harmful to the human mind and screw them
Mm.
up the least. So that I can like if I can measure it by a metric, legacy means a lower number of hours of therapy for my kids later in life to have them therapy out the ways that I screwed them up. Raise a good family. To me, legacy is just, it's not about helping everybody. It's about
Right.
showing up as the kind of person that models what a good life could look like for my kids. I have 3 kids now. We just had our third baby, and it's very, very much about helping them just not screw them up and create runway for them to have an amazing life. And an amazing life also includes incredible challenges and incredible sadness and incredible difficulty. But to do that with grace and patience and wisdom, if I can raise kids that are able to accomplish that, then that's all I need for my legacy.
Joe, thank you so much for your time. I want to be really conscious of it. I know you got your meals to attend to straight after this, and I know how important the physiology is to your day now that we've had this conversation. So, your journey from 5 companies to 3 exits to now building, the leverage layer for other thought leaders. That's exactly what sort of quiet, strategic building looks like. And I'm very grateful for your time. I appreciate you pulling back the curtain. For those of you who want to follow Joe's insight on scaling AI, founder mindset, you can find him at Joe Stolte live across socials. I'll also be tagging that on the episode. This has been the 5th quarter. Until next time, move with clarity and build with soul. Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man.